Squidward noticed that SpongeBob had thrown his newly bought TV into the trash can. Then SpongeBob and Patrick crawled into a box and stayed there all day without coming out. Later that night, after they left, Squidward sneaked inside to check, but found nothing. What could be hidden inside that box? One day, SpongeBob's package arrived, and to Squidward's surprise, it was a big TV. SpongeBob, however, treated it like trash and threw it away, and went right back into the box with Patrick. Squidward was confused. He asked them what they were doing, but deep down, he really wanted that TV for himself.
I'm imagining myself watching TV, and there it is! Can I have a SpongeBob? Cheers, Squidward.
So Squidward took the TV for himself, feeling pretty pleased, until he saw SpongeBob and Patrick inside the box pretending to climb a mountain. As Squidward passed by with the remote,
Patrick, I think we should keep our voices down! We might start an avalanche!
Enraged, Squidward kicked the box away. His cold sweat dripping as he thought they'd frozen. He opened the box to find them sitting quietly inside. Everything was perfectly fine. Next, the sound of fighter jets filled the air, and Squidward instinctively ducked. But then he realized the sound was coming from the box. He rushed to open it, and the two of them were still sitting there, unmoving. More confused than ever, Squidward went home and tried sitting inside the box himself, waiting for something to happen. But nothing did. Just then, the sound of a spaceship flew by outside. Finally, Squidward decided to check the box again. Inside, there were no gadgets or devices of any kind. Determined to figure out what was going on, he decided to climb into the box himself. Once inside, he heard a series of beep-beep sounds, and after a moment of frustration, he suddenly realized he was completely absorbed in it.
Oh boy, this makes TV by a long shot!
Not even noticing that he had been mistaken for trash and was being carted away. Did you know that the owner of the Krusty Krab turns into Plankton? Everything was remodeled to match Plankton's style. One day, while Plankton and Karen were on a date, Plankton's grandma suddenly called. She told him that tomorrow was her 90th birthday, and she planned to celebrate at the Krusty Krab. It turns out, Plankton had previously told his grandma that he had bought the Krusty Krab. When he heard she was coming, Plankton broke into a cold sweat and had no choice but to agree to her request. The date was interrupted, and Karen, angry, kicked Plankton out. Plankton, feeling helpless, turned to SpongeBob for help and explained the situation. He hoped he could be the boss of the Krusty Krab for one day to smooth things over with his grandma. Though SpongeBob was willing to help, Mr. Krabs didn't agree. Seeing this, Plankton decided to pull out his ultimate move. When Mr. Krabs saw the pitiful look in Plankton's eyes, he immediately softened and agreed to Plankton's request. However, to be safe, Mr. Krabs swallowed the secret formula. Then everyone began remodeling the Krusty Krab. The cash register was fitted with a one-eyed logo, the trash cans and drink cups were also changed to feature the one-eyed design, and the walls were freshly painted. The whole Krusty Krab turned into Plankton's restaurant. The next day, Plankton's grandma arrived at the restaurant. Plankton gave her a tour and introduced her to the staff. Suddenly, they noticed Squidward was napping. But Grandma was completely smitten with Squidward's look and jumped right onto his nose. When it came time to eat the Krabby Patty, Grandma intentionally dropped her dentures into the frying pan and had Squidward feed her. After the tour, Grandma was ready to head home, but she had one more request. She wanted a photo with the secret formula. Seeing this, Plankton pulled out his ultimate move once again. Mr. Krabs had no choice but to agree. Just then, Plankton's grandma suddenly flew away, taking the secret formula with her. It turned out that the entire thing had been her plan, and Plankton had been completely in the dark. In the end, Grandma blew Squidward a kiss and flew off with the formula. With the formula in hand, Grandma became the queen of Bikini Bottom, and Squidward became her male companion. All the residents bowed to them. Of course, this was all just a dream of Plankton's grandma. What would happen if SpongeBob didn't live in a pineapple? Then the opening line would be,
Oh, who lives in a banana under the sea?
One day, SpongeBob was cleaning the barnacles off his pineapple house, while Squidward was deeply focused on creating his latest piece of art. Suddenly, a piece of barnacle flew off, startling Squidward, and he saw his artwork ruined. Furious, Squidward decided to get revenge on SpongeBob and tried to figure out a way to drive him away. He snuck into the pineapple house and sprinkled pepper all over the floor, hoping to chase SpongeBob out. Unfortunately, the pepper ended up all over Squidward instead. The noise woke Gary, who sensed an intruder and started attacking Squidward. The next day, the room was covered in pepper, making SpongeBob sneeze non-stop. When he came out, he was covered in bruises. Squidward pretended to be concerned, telling SpongeBob he was allergic to pineapples and urging him to move out. Then he continued sprinkling pepper on SpongeBob, but SpongeBob had already grown attached to the pineapple house. For his own survival, he had to move, and Squidward accompanied him to help find a new place. This was the first option.
Oh, who lives in a hot pepper under the sea?
SpongeBob didn't like it. Then came the third option.
Oh, who lives in a chicken parmesan hero under the sea?
But SpongeBob worried he might get fat. Eventually, he found a house that looked nice, only to realize it was actually a coffin. Squidward told him there was only one choice left. Although the house looked old, its interior was futuristic and amazing. SpongeBob loved it. Squidward liked it too, but he told SpongeBob that it was too far from Bikini Bottom and convinced him to move into Squidward's old house instead. SpongeBob happily agreed. That night, Squidward began enjoying his new life, experiencing the smart home system. He set the alarm and drifted into a deep sleep. Suddenly, the alarm went off, waking him up. He realized, too late, that it wasn't a normal alarm. It was a countdown for a rocket launch. The house transformed into a rocket, blasted into space, then returned to Earth, landing back in Bikini Bottom. Having lost his home, Squidward wanted to return to his original house, only to find it had been replaced by a pineapple house. Just as Squidward tried to move into SpongeBob's old pineapple house, he discovered Patrick had taken it over. With nowhere else to go, Squidward had no choice but to move into Patrick's rock house. Patrick's head was pierced by a laser and his brain fell out, only to bounce straight into SpongeBob's body. Turning around, SpongeBob couldn't find Gary. Gary had been distracted by the toy above, climbed up, and seemed to have found his new favorite thing. Gary fell from above, landing right on top of SpongeBob. When they got home, Gary's attention was completely fixated fixated on that ball. That night, SpongeBob caught Gary dating the toy. Clearly, his presence interrupted their private time. Even when SpongeBob opened some food, Gary wasn't interested at all. SpongeBob realized something was off with Gary, and he was shocked by his behavior. Unable to take it anymore, he decided to confiscate Gary's ball, putting it up on the shelf before heading to bed. The next morning, SpongeBob found that Gary had gone missing again. He finally found Gary on the ceiling. Gary had clearly gone crazy, completely ignoring SpongeBob. SpongeBob had had enough and forcibly pried Gary off the ceiling. For the ball, Gary even bit him, not caring at all. Maybe leaving was the best thing for Gary. Even though SpongeBob had left, Gary didn't care at all. That night, Gary got hungry, finally remembering how good SpongeBob had been and deciding to find him. But that little ball kept getting in his way, and it was driving him crazy. Gary tried to put the ball in the juicer, but the ball shot out immediately, starting to destroy SpongeBob's house. When the ball finally stopped bothering him, Gary went out to find SpongeBob. Although SpongeBob pretended not to care, he softened when Gary apologized. Now, SpongeBob has no home. What should he do? Did you know Gary has a special ability? He can suck up money. SpongeBob worried this might make him uncomfortable, but Mr. Krabs didn't care at all as long as it filled his own pockets. To drain Gary dry, he kept coming up with excuses to take him away from SpongeBob. Before long, all the customers' money was gone.
Hey, what are you doing with my change?
Your change? Anything on the floor be fair game.
And Mr. Krabs' pockets were stuffed to the brim. Angry customers stormed out, so he simply closed the Krusty Krab and took Gary out to the streets to keep collecting cash. But Gary gradually started losing control, even sucking coins out of parking meters. He was reaching his limit, and no amount of threats could make him stop. Just then, SpongeBob appeared. Mr. Krabs pretended they were just playing, but Gary was crying for help, something SpongeBob didn't notice. Next, Mr. Krabs disguised Gary as a pregnant mom and brought him into an arcade. Surrounded by piles of coins, Gary completely lost his mind, imagining himself a millionaire. But when Mr. Krabs tried to pull him out, Gary's ability suddenly stopped. SpongeBob immediately saw through his scheme. Then Gary went out of control again, sending all the customers' coins flying into the air. Instantly, the coins poured toward him like a flood. SpongeBob was stunned by the sight, while Mr. Krabs' eyes lit up as he dove into the pile of money, oblivious to the danger. In the end, he was buried under a mountain of coins and rushed to the hospital. The doctor explained that Gary could suck up money because he had accidentally swallowed a magnet. Looking at the sky-high medical bill, Mr. Krabs felt a chill, but then he breathed a sigh of relief when he realized the money he had hoarded earlier was just enough to cover it. SpongeBob bit off the red thread from his uniform, and everyone mistakenly thought he was a doctor. His first patient had a completely shattered leg. The doctor recommended amputation, but SpongeBob pulled out a new fish skeleton, cleared the patient's bones, and stuffed the skeleton into the patient's body. Miraculously, the patient stood up, even though his head and body were facing different directions. Next, there was the second patient, complaining of a sore throat. SpongeBob grabbed a chicken feather and gently scratched the patient with it. Watching SpongeBob's professional technique, the two doctors began to believe he really was a doctor. So they handed SpongeBob Squidward's plastic surgery. When Squidward saw SpongeBob, he was ready to expose him, but the anesthesia had already taken effect. SpongeBob began picking out his surgical tools, but in the end, he picked up a Krabby Patty spatula. At first, he cut off one of Squidward's legs, but no one blamed him. SpongeBob gathered his courage and cut off Squidward's head as well. Everyone thought this was an advanced medical technique, and they applauded SpongeBob, giving him even more confidence. Then SpongeBob turned Squidward into his signature dish, the Krabby Patty, and everyone clapped even harder for him. When Squidward woke up, he was dissatisfied with his nose, so SpongeBob decided to perform another surgery.
No.
After 3,800 cuts, Squidward finally got the nose he wanted, even though it was exactly the same as before. But this time, it had cost him all his physical being.